All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Gonna be touching on the top prop bets for the Saturday 2-game slate in the NFL. Let's go ahead and get into. So starting with the slate preview that we have, we got the Steelers versus the Ravens. 3.8 is going to be the spread on average. 35 for the over and under, or 35.5 for the over and under is going to be the average there as well. Looking at the injury report, now we kind of have to look at it in a slightly different way because we know Lamar Jackson's going to be out. He's just not injured. If this were the NBA, people would be freaking out. That's a joke about the NBA policy here with the rules and whatnot. But all in all, my biggest question is like, who is going to play running back? Is it going to be Gus Edwards for Baltimore? You know, how many snaps will they give someone like Zay Flowers in this one, or OBJ? Like, to me, I'm guessing that those players are not going to play that much if they're already staying out Lamar Jackson. So Tyler Huntley starting, we know that. Maybe even Isaiah likely doesn't get that much work as well. So prop betting wise, I really don't think we're going to be wanting to target Baltimore too much, because to me, logically speaking, if they already send Lamar, could then kind of, you're still going to play the other guys, but you're going to treat it more like a preseason game. Like for DFS purposes, I think Charlie Collar, I forget how to say it, but he was a preseason stud for tight ends, and he could be someone that we're looking at and potentially props betting as well, just hoping that he gets about 50% of the snaps as well. Now, I do want to point out that game against Baltimore, or against the Miami, was a blowout as well. So like, honestly, I could see the snaps that we saw in this game be the kind of snaps that we're going to see this week as well. So, and again, that's just because like they really don't have much to play for. They're already seeing Lamar Jackson for a reason. And like for Baltimore, the only prop that we are currently getting is going to be Tyler Huntley. And it does make sense why that's the only one that we're getting, because, well, we had those concerns about, you know, players not playing their full allotment of snaps. Now, I'm sure we'll get some right before lineup lock. And again, guys, maybe Charlie is someone we're looking at. Rashad Bateman still getting work makes sense to me. Like, he's someone that really would be the only one I think we could favor getting some playing time. And then also, like, Tyler Huntley is someone that he was a Pro Bowl quarterback last year, right? I mean, could he get his over of 174 passing yards? He could. You got to remember, this is a slightly different offensive scheme. He is a poor man's version of Lamar Jackson. He's not terrible. And so he could get that over. The only way I'm doing that, though, you guys can see it's a 50-50 likelihood. The only way I would get there is if we were trying to game stack it, or really just stack them with someone else. For Pittsburgh, we are getting a decent amount of props. The issue is we're not getting really any good prop. And so looking at right now, George Pickens, 3.5 receptions, we can see that is a 52% chance to hit. Pat Freiermuth, one of the only good ones that we had, 2.5 receptions. You know, that would have been a 58% chance to hit. That's why it's at 3 right now, and that's why I got bumped. From there, Deontay Johnson, you know, maybe receiving yards. But yeah, we're not getting that many good props. And I will say, there could be a decent edge here if Baltimore does decide again to potentially sit more than just Lamar Jackson. Like defensively, if they sit some of their starters, again, not the full game, but treat it more like a preseason game, maybe there is a sneaky stack that we could be rolling with Pittsburgh in the passing game. And just taking a peek at their snaps from last week, like Pickens played a lot. Allen Robinson played 66% of the snaps, didn't get a reception. Okay, Darnell Washington's playing more. Pat Freiermuth's playing more. They are going to a little bit more of 12 personnel, actually a lot more 12 personnel, running out Jaylen Warren and also Najee Harris. And I kind of expect those two to have good games as well. Again, not as great as last game because obviously Seattle was a very good matchup, and maybe that's why we're not getting any props for them just yet. And then Deontay Johnson, I don't know, we're probably just staying away from Deontay Johnson. Kind of strange that he didn't get that many snaps. So all in all, for the first game, we're really not getting good prop bets just yet. And I'm on Underdog. I'll take a peek at PrizePicks. I don't think that's going to change. Yeah, PrizePicks, they're not giving us any for Baltimore. And then Pittsburgh, only receiving yards. Again, those are not that good of prop bets right now. I guess we can take a peek and see if we're getting Demon and Goblins props for them at all. That might be worthwhile for someone. No, not really. No, not at all, actually. So yeah, we're not touching. So hopefully in the second game, we're going to get some better prop bets to go in on. And so the second game that we have is going to be Houston versus Indianapolis. 1 point spread, 47.5 is going to be the over and under. So a pretty high scoring game. This is going to be a primetime game, probably a fun game to pay attention to. Jonathan Taylor is going to be back, or he has been back. The biggest question is whether Zach Moss is going to be back. And then if he is, will that kind of change the amount of snaps that JT gets? I doubt it. I think they're going to rush JT a lot. And what I was kind of surprised by, though, is the fact that he's only played 60% of the snaps the last 2 weeks. I would have thought he would get more work. No, they've been mixing in Trey Sermon. He has looked good. And I would have actually thought Tyler Goodson would have got some more work as well after looking pretty good as well. That did not happen. Now, kind of the nice thing as well, we don't have to worry about any weather situations at all with this game being indoors. We got Jonathan Taylor, not a terrible matchup going against Houston. He rushed the ball 21 times, 18 times, you know, averaging 20 opportunities over the the last 2 weeks. This is a matchup that I think I want to be going in on Jonathan Taylor, even if he is only playing 60% of the snaps. Like, Trey Sermon's not getting too much work. I mean, 30%, getting 7 opportunities is decent. But all in all, I think we can trust that Jonathan Taylor is going to get a decent amount of work. From there, looking at the snaps, Alec Pierce continues to play all the snaps while really not doing much with them. Michael Pittman Jr. basically came back and played his normal role. Okay, Josh Downs probably going to play 60 to 70% of the snaps. What is a little bit shocking is that they also have went to a little bit more of 12 personnel as well. We can see a bunch of 2 tight ends in there. That means a lot more 2 tight end sets. And now I think it's worth calling out as well, because the tight ends do get a good matchup in this game going against the Texans. Now, the Texans you have been able to throw the ball against, don't get me wrong, but much easier at the tight end spot. And again, just starting this game out with looking at the Demon and Goblin props, really not much there, guys. You know, given how much they shift the payouts, I don't think these are worthwhile at all. So again, probably staying away from those. And then we go ahead and jump on into Indy. We are getting a decent bet here for Josh Downs, get over 39.5 receiving yards. Ignore the PrizePicks line. That's going to be the Goblin line. Kind of hate that they do that. But looking at right now, at 39.5, they're favoring the over there about 53%. So bump it down a yard. That's going to favor it about 54%. Now, I just showed you guys that he is playing a decent amount. You know, 60% of the snaps. His role is actually down a little bit. And the question becomes, will the Colts have to throw the football a lot? That's the biggest question, because obviously we saw Jonathan Taylor at 21 rushing attempts, Trey Sermon 5. That's 26 rushing attempts. Yeah, they just were choosing not to throw the football that much. So in this game, you hope that it is high scoring. That would then push Josh Downs on the field a little bit more. That would then obviously lead to some more targets and more receptions, thus gain over 38.5 in a heavier scoring game. Not terrible. And then we are getting a prop for Kylan Granson. You know, I'm fine betting the over, probably more so on PrizePicks there at 23.5. And then same thing with Jonathan Taylor. Like, his rush yards, guys, are actually pretty low. This is not a terrible matchup for Jonathan Taylor. Again, if he's going to be getting around, let's just say 18 rushing attempts, I think he has a good chance to get that over against the Tampa Bay Bucks, who were one of the best, if not the best, rush defenses. Against New England, you know, a pretty good rush defense as well. Like, against Cleveland, another pretty good rush defense. Like, he has done well in less than desirable situations, and now this one is basically a push. And I think if he's going to get 20 or so rushing attempts, maybe slightly less than that, I like his chances of getting over 71 rushing yards. I think that's a pretty good one, but again, the data only has that at about a 50-50 split. Taking a quick peek at PrizePicks, and you can see PrizePicks has it bumped up by 2 yards. Look how much that shifts the odds. Only about a 52% chance to hit. I mean, it's a small difference, but it does add up. Overall, don't really love the rest of the props that we're getting. We do have Granson for under 2.5 receptions. Again, this is a good matchup for opposing tight ends. I probably don't want to be touching those unders for Granson or, you know, Mo Alley Cox or, you know, whichever the other tight end is. To me, that's just probably a stay. And now we flip up and get into Houston, where we are getting some better props. But first, let's kind of just look over the injury report again. And so looking at them, you know, Robert Woods questionable. If he sits, that could open up some snaps. We know Tank Dell's still been out. Noah Brown's still been out. Andrew Beck actually potentially being out could mean something for Devin Singletary. Looking at the snaps for them from last week, Schultz was back playing his normal allotment of snaps after 2 weeks off. You know, he's been doing that for about 3 weeks now. Yeah, Robert Woods being out it's tough to say. Maybe Hutchinson would get back to about 70% of the snaps. Nico Collins is back. Devin Singletary, 62% of snaps. I would imagine that's what he's going to get again in this game. They don't seem to want to run out Pierce. And then Dario Gumbawale, he is their passing down back for what it's worth. Then, yeah, Noah Brown being out. It's tough to say who's going to be the second receiver, though. It's either going to be Mechie or Hutchinson. If Woods is out, even if Woods is active, it could still be one of those two. It's actually probably just going to be Dalton Schultz. And so now getting to the prop bets that we are currently getting. Guys, I don't like touching the rush yard props at all. If you want to bet this bet, it'd be on PrizePicks here at 8.5 for under rush yards for CJ Stroud. It's a 1.5 yard difference. I just don't want to touch that. I don't like those ones. Devin Singletary's receiving yard line is definitely interesting here, where, you know, the average sportsbook line would slightly be favoring the over at 12.5 receiving yards. But Underdog has it set at 12.5. PrizePicks has it set at 14.5. So, you know, a slight edge there for the under. You know, I did just mention that Dario Gumbawale, much more of a receiving back, but this is a pretty good matchup for Devin Singletary. I kind of expect him to get probably this workload that he had against Tennessee. 26 rush attempts, just rush with him a bunch. And then when he's tired, then you run out Dameon Pierce. You know, that would probably be my strategy. And I bet they will. So maybe we're actually looking at a rushing prop for him. You know, if it's at 16 or lower, definitely feel good about attacking that. It'll probably set like 17.5, I would imagine. Again, just given the matchup. From there, passing yards, I don't feel the need to touch. Not too many for PrizePicks. Let's go ahead and take a peek at Underdog. And then, yeah, they are giving us some Dameon Pierce props for Underdog there. It does make sense why. Again, this is a good matchup for opposing running backs. If he even gets like 20% of the snaps and gets 8 carries like that, man, he should be able to get that over, right? Like, that is a very low line. And, oh boy, I think I might just talk myself into that. I don't love that. You know, again, 19, 20%, if we want to round up. 8 carries in that game. That game was a bit of a blowout as well. That's definitely noteworthy because chances are it's probably going to be closer to 4 carries in this matchup. But again, it's a good matchup. Definitely an interesting one there. Continuing on, Devin Singletary, we don't need to touch that slightly too high. I did mention Dalton Schultz would be someone I think we could potentially go in on. Now, the data is not loving that too much, but he's probably going to be the second passing option in this offense. It's going to be Nico Collins as the number 1. We did see Dalton Schultz really have a pretty good season for the most part, a little bit hit or miss, but you know, with how banged up they are at the receiver spot, again, Noah Brown going to be out in this game. Robert Woods could sit in this game, you know, hasn't practiced at all, so I do expect him to sit. And so yes, it's probably going to be some of Hutchinson. We're probably going to get some props for him, and it's probably going to be John Mechie as well. Okay, but to me, like, the player that we know is going to be on the field at least is going to be Dalton Schultz. So I could see betting the over receiving yards all in all. Probably don't need to do that. And then Nico Collins, I do think a lot of people are going to want to bet Nico Collins. His receiving yards at 74.5 is probably correct. Okay, I don't really see an edge there. I would say if we do get his receptions prop at like 6, I probably would be fine betting the over, just because I do think he's going to get targeted heavily, and he got some kind of easier reception. Last CJ Stroud was clearly looking. And guys, that's going to be all for this video. No bet of the day. It is a little bit too thin right now. I will be covering some bets for this game if we get some more throughout the week. That's going to be all. Thank you guys for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.